Welcome back to the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network. We're brought to you by Yak Gadget. For all your kayak fishing accessory needs, go to yakgadget.com. Pelican cases, coolers, and lighting. Go to pelican.com. The 153 Bait Company. For all your hard and soft bait needs, go to the 153anglers.com. Now let's get this show started.
What's up, everybody?
Welcome back to the Real Down.
Hey, how dare you talk over me? What's up, dude? For everybody that's listening and not watching, you probably recognize that voice. We got Mr. Brian Schiller in the house.
What up?
Going on, dude? What's been up to?
You know, just living life in the woods. Now that hunting season is almost over, I'm getting amped up about next year's tournament season.
Heck yeah. I'm actually going to take a swing at it again next year, right?
Yeah, so hopefully I'll be a guest, not a host next season, like every show you got. So that's my goal.
I mean, I'll bring you on. It won't be for anything, but you can be a guest all you want to be.
I'm sure you're right.
Brian's good. I think he might surprise some folks. I think he'll cash a few checks next year.
We'll see. It
might just be getting his entry fee back, but
yeah, it's fine.
It's better.
Hey, I'd rather that than not get a check at all. So I'm good with that. I'm good with 10th to like 5th place finishes, you know?
Consistency.
Exactly.
I don't have to be the best. I just can't be the worst.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, all right, for everybody tuning in. I planned on taking the break a little early, but the Tennessee Bass Nation, old Steve Owens, threw an event down there to kick off their thing on Del Hollow on December 4th. We got the winners from that event. One of them has a really interesting story that I know of on how he caught them, and he's been a guest multiple times. And then we have another guest coming in that I'm excited to talk about because he took that other person's money. So without any further ado, Mr. Tom Kazmierski took the win from our buddy Adam Reiser, who usually just dominates us on Del Hollow. But still, second place. I mean, that's amazing. It's nothing to shake a stick at all. What's up, guys?
Hey, good evening. Good evening, fellas. Happy to be here talking with you.
Heck yeah. Well, Tom, we'll let you go first. Adam's been on with us a few times, but tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into kayak fishing.
Jamie Koza at the dugout drug me in it, kicking and screaming. He and I have been friends for a long time. I'm a local to that area. Grew up in Kennesaw, so I'm kind of known as one of the dugout guys where I live. So I had sold my glass, my glitter boat, as I know kayak guys call them now, but I sold it because of life, just kids getting busy in sports and stuff. And my kids are getting old enough now to where they don't like dad around as much. So Jamie's like, you need to get one of these kayaks, give this a run. And I'm like, sure, I'm game. I'll try anything once. So got into it that way, and I really enjoy it. I like, there's two aspects of kayak fishing. One's, where it's kind of a group of guys kind of hanging out fishing. That part's cool, similar to the glitter boat world. But the other cool thing is, you're out there by yourself, just kind of taking it all in. It's kind of a different competition. I used to always love partner tournaments because, two guys in the boat, high five and catching bass, you got that, you get to share it. In kayak world, it's all on you. So it's your decisions, your gut feel. It's just making all the right decisions, and when it comes together, it feels pretty good. It's something you did it by yourself. So
for sure.
I enjoy it. I love kayak fishing now.
What you put out great points for both. Do you have a favorite though, or if you don't have a favorite, do you miss the boat side of it?
Not really. I was sitting around the dugout today talking with some of the guys that I boat fished with for years here on local lakes, and we were kind of talking about the boat scene. It's changed a lot, at least here in Georgia. Some of the best part of a boat tournament, which we don't get in kayak fishing, it is something I miss a little maybe, but the camaraderie at the boat ramp. So in a boat tournament, you got 50, 60, 70 boats showing up at a boat ramp. We're all razzing each other. We're all making fun of each other. Somebody's got some funny story that happened with their kids, their wife, whatever, all kinds of stuff going on. That was some of my favorite part of, just the camaraderie at the boat ramp, knowing everybody and kind of catching up, right? Then obviously when you put your boat in the water, I mean, one of my big things was if I didn't feel butterflies in my stomach when we're sitting there waiting to blast off, I'll quit. But in kayak world, I get the same feeling. So I'm sitting there in a kayak and, somebody's counting down, some of the ramps I've been out, one of the guys will count down or something, or say a prayer. And I'm over there with my stomach and knots going, man, if I made the right decisions, am I at the right ramp, things like that. So, but that's all part of that anxiety to me is, that's the pump up, the fun of the sport. So,
that's why I'll die, younger than most. That same reason.
If I go, I want to go in a kayak having a heart attack right at blast off.
I'll finally catch a double digit and I'll have a heart attack and not get to enjoy it. I just hope someone's near me that can just land it and say that they caught it. Somebody get to take that glory. I'll just be floating around face down, but it's cool.
Yeah, fair enough.
Well, we got Adam Reiser too. We've had Adam. I don't even know how many times we've had you on now, Adam.
Handful for sure.
Especially every Dale Hollow tournament. I think
I have to have him on.
He's
He's
out
like
there
the
on
Dale
his kayak,
Hollow,
dude.
He can either be on because he did good, or he can give you a very technical breakdown of everything, which is a killer aspect that I love to have. Only thing that would make this show better is I could have Drew on here too, so him and Drew could go back, because Drew pulls facts and stats out of his butt all the time.
He does.
I'm like, oh. But
I'm sure that podcast would go about 6 hours.
I'd let it. I'd just sit here too, just staring at it. Probably wouldn't learn much. But Adam, for anybody who might be new to listening to Paddle and Fin that doesn't know who you are, tell everybody about yourself.
Yeah, my name's Adam Reiser. I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and been an active participant in the kayak tournaments for years now. I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years between the club and the national scene. And I don't know, I guess it was sometime last year, jumped into guiding a little bit. So I've been doing that in between tournament runs too. And that's just it. If I can find an excuse to get out there and catch bass out of a kayak, I'm going to do it. And that's the summary of what I'm into. I just like catching bass from a kayak. Simple as that.
Heck yeah.
Love it.
He's pretty good at it too. Well, since you are our resident Del Hollow expert, why don't you give everybody a breakdown of what this lake is, how it lays out?
Sure. It's most famous for being a smallmouth world record lake. That's where the standing world record smallmouth comes out of a long while ago. It's a deep, clear reservoir that splits Kentucky and Tennessee. It's famed for its smallmouth fishing, but due to the slot limit there, most boat tournaments will target largemouth. But you can catch them, both species there really well. It's one of the most scenic lakes in the world. It's the #1 houseboat lake in the world. So during the summer, it's a big recreation lake, but you can still catch them then. Depending on what day of the week you ask me, I might tell you it's my favorite lake. I really do enjoy it there. You can, I kind of think of it as kind of like the Babe Ruth of lakes. You're going to have a lot of strikeouts there, especially outside of the winter. But when you do hit it big there, you seem to have a really big day. I mean, I can't tell you how many days where I'm not getting a bite, then all of a sudden I just run into a cluster of fish, and both the largemouth and the smallmouth mix together there often. So you just never know when you're going to just turn the corner there and run into a big group of fish and have a great day. And like I say, as far as scenery goes, you guys have been there. You can echo my sentiment. It's about as good as it gets for scenery as well. So it's any excuse I can get to get out to Del Hollow, I'm going to take it.
Yeah, it really is, man. We got to get we've been there a few times, paddle and fin, as a whole, and always have a great time. And like you said, the scenery is great. But we got to dabble into that houseboat thing a little bit last year, and that was, we didn't even leave dock with them. But I'm ready to hit the summer and have Richard down there at Eastport take us somewhere way off and just leave us in that houseboat. It might sink because
Yeah,
we
I
enjoyed
was
it
gonna
way
say
too
that
much.
might be dangerous.
My
But
my
no, it's
boss my
beautiful.
boss a couple of years ago, we did it on Center Hill, but same thing. He was able to rent us one of those big houseboats and a pontoon and a few jet skis. And hey, I get it. I get the appeal of why it's so popular to do during the warm season. It's a lot of fun to get out there on the lake, and it's big, deep, open, clear water, so you can kind of ham it up out there on whatever watercraft you're on. And it makes for a good time. I totally get it.
Heck yeah.
Heck yeah. I mean, you got to have something to take a break from fishing occasionally.
Yeah.
Adam's like, yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, no. I did it for like 10 minutes and then I got
Small
back in my
breaks.
kayak.
Very,
Yeah.
very small breaks.
Well, let's go ahead and get into it. Either one of you can take this. Tell us about what it's like fishing this particular lake in December, because for a lot of people that don't take kayak fishing or tournament fishing too serious, when you get towards the known winter months, that's when it cuts off for a lot of people. But there were I think it was 97 people show up for this. Was it? Yeah, 97
Yep.
anglers showed up on first week of December for an event on Del Hollow. So first off, what was the weather like? Because I know the weather's been flip flopping down here in Alabama. So what did that lay out like?
I'll go into the weather, and then I'll let Tom take December in Del Hollow because he's got years and years of experience doing that. The weather leading up to it was a little bit unseasonably warm, both the air temps and the water temps. I felt like a little bit behind schedule. Do you think like the lake was a little behind schedule for this time of year, Tom?
I definitely think so.
Um,
Well, like it was last year too, a little bit even.
Yeah, I think so too. So that was, I mean, week before the tournament, I was out there messing around with Steve-O. We were getting him on top water, So and one of the guys that almost won this tournament was getting him on
Right.
top water. So
Wow.
in December,
That's crazy.
So it was, yeah, in my opinion, if you were fishing this tournament and knew a little bit about Del Hollow, like you had to approach it with a little bit of an open mind because it definitely wasn't quite winter. There was some winter like mode fish, but there was plenty of fish that weren't quite in winter mode either. So I don't know. I guess we'll call that transition time. So warm, unseasonably warm going into it, but there was still definitely some like winter patterns that played out. But traditional December, Tom can tell you all about that. He's got a lot of time there during December.
Well, tell us all about it, man.
Yeah, I agree with Adam on the. It seems like we're about a month behind on weather. And I saw schooling fish Thursday and Friday, and December, January, which is typically when I go to Del Hollow, and I don't understand people not wanting to fish in the winter because it's quiet, it's peaceful, and good Lord, they group up, and you can. Some of the best days I've ever had in my life, and the biggest fish I've caught in my life, have come in the months of December and January, especially for anybody who wants to catch a trophy spot. I mean, that's when you go and catch it. I mean, that's your best odds. Let's put it that way. But December on Del Hollow, typically, I would like to see water temperatures more around 50 or less degrees. I think we were at 55, which was kind of getting close, but the fish are doing a lot of things with those water temperatures. Like I said, if I would have had top water, I probably would have thrown it a little bit just to see, because I saw some activity that, kind of, it's a smallmouth. Who knows, man? They're little feeding machines,
Smallmouth on top water is always fun. So.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I don't know how I was going to land it, but, the bite would be fun.
Yeah.
Hard enough landing when I'm trying to stick a jig in his head, but typically about now we're up there. The trips I've made, and I've got a lot of history up there in the winter months. We go there primarily to float and fly fish. I've done a ton of that. I did it in practice. I caught some big fish in practice doing it. And I've caught a lot of big fish on a float and fly, more so than any other lure I've thrown for smallmouth up there. But it was funny when I was practicing. I was around a lot of bass boats because there was 3 bass boat tournaments Saturday. There was 2 up the lake, and then there was the Billy Westmoreland, which is a smallmouth only tournament down the lake. Which I don't know if I saw any of those guys, but because they have to catch overs, unlike us, they have to catch over 21 inches, which it's a tough fish to catch. I mean, that's a trophy smallmouth.
That's definitely a weigh-in you want to be at, though, because
Right,
if somebody
right.
came in, it's a killer.
They
fish.
did. I think one of the guys that won it had like 7 or 8 pounds, and that's 1 over and 1 under. So the under 16 inches, which call it 2 1/4 pounds maybe. So
and then a tank over.
That's a tank over, right? But the interesting thing was the bass boats that were around me, they had to be from the other tournaments, and I looked at the weights from those. Actually, some of those guys posted them Monday, and it took over 20 pounds of largemouth to win those tournaments.
That's nuts.
And it was interesting because they were coming around me. I go up there to target smallmouth, right or wrong, what it is. That lake has such an impressive population of both fish. It has some of the healthiest largemouth I've ever seen in my life. And obviously the smallmouth population is just flourishing. But I had guys fishing grass in front of me in, say, 15 to 0 foot of water with punching basically in bass boats. And I watched them rip largemouth out of it all day long. And then I'm sitting out there in 30 foot of water, fishing isolated structure, on a flat, trying to catch big smallmouth. But I was sitting there going the whole time I'm watching this, because I've watched Adam catch a lot of largemouth, and I'm sitting there going, I'm going to get my head kicked in. I got to get some bigger fish. Because that water temperature just sets up. I mean, 55-degree water for a smallmouth, to me, in my mind, and I'm not a biologist. I don't know that species that well, other than Del Hollow and a few trips in the Carolinas that I've done to fish for them. But I feel like 55-degree water to a smallmouth is almost like, that 60, 65-degree water for a largemouth. So, I think that's why a lot of guys struggled. Because there was guys catching them in 55, 60 foot of water.
So it was kind of just open all over. You could catch them just about however you wanted.
You could. The problem is that's, when you show up to a lake, or at least when I show up to a lake, I'm hoping it's not like that. Obviously,
you want it to be that 1 or 2 things, and you want to be the only one that figures it out.
Yeah, well, that's the unicorn, right? But but the reality is when they're spread out like that, there's so many ways to catch them. Something. I mean, I didn't hear anybody really talking about it, but Del Hollow is an amazing jerkbait lake. It's known for it. I mean, I know locals up there that catch stud smallmouth on jerkbaits. They talk about it all the time. And I didn't hear a single angler talking about a jerkbait bite anywhere, and I'm going to bash on Steve-O, but the guy that loves to throw a jerkbait, the only thing he loves more than a jerkbait, I think, is a chatterbait. But
I'm not sure he takes anything else with him, to be honest. Maybe a topwater occasionally.
Right, thank you. So, I told him, I said, why don't you just go sling a jerkbait all day and see what happens? Just go try it. I mean, you love the dang bait. You got confidence in it. I personally felt like, the lake set up in this particular time to, if you had something you had a lot of confidence in and you worked at it, you could have possibly made it happen. And that goes for a guy that wanted to fish shallow versus deep. I think Adam and I, he and I have kind of talked a lot about different techniques, and I love sitting there talking to Adam because he's, like you said, he digs in, man. He takes things to the next level, other than just, well, I'm doing this and this, but it was because of this, and this, I like that too. I'm a firm believer in electronics. I like using them. And I try to figure out how to, if I'm throwing something and I'm getting bit a little bit, I'll change up a little bit to try to see if I can get bit more. I do a lot of things to, try to increase the percentages. But, that typically the cold months up there, if that water temperature would get around 50 degrees, those fish will group, those smallmouth will start to group better. They will quit roaming as much as what they're doing right now, and you can truly blister them. I've had, 30, 50, 60 fish days up there religiously.
That just like makes me know I suck. Like, I appreciate it. Like, I'm sitting here like, God, you don't know what you're doing yet. Like,
no, it's not. As good as Dale Hollow is, I think the first time we showed up there, I zeroed, and this may have been 20 years ago now, or at least 15. And it was 10 of us, and guys that knew what they were doing. We all zeroed, and we came in like, whose idea was this? I mean, we're staying at Horse Creek, and we're sitting there in a cabin at night, basically trying to drink our sorrows away because it was so bad. And then I started thinking about it. I'm like, man, this lake's just like Lake Lanier. Screw this. I'm tying on a bunch of jigs. I'm going jig fishing. I'm going to fish ditches all day. And fortunately, that year, the water temperature was like 48, 47 degrees. And I just went dragging a jig from basically 30 foot to 60 foot. And I started catching. When I found them, it was lights out. The guy in the back of the boat, he's like, oh my gosh, this is the best trip ever. And I'm like, this is how it should be, in the wintertime. So, I mean, that's typical of this time of year. But, I mean, I say that, but the last 2 years, I think last year the water temperature was like 58, 59 degrees. And then this year it's 55. They were starting to get right. But those smallmouth, I mean, I've been there once. I think the air temperatures were like 8 degrees. And at night it was getting down in the negatives. The water temperature was 42 degrees. I was convinced we were not going to catch a fish because, here in spotted bass and largemouth country, and like in Georgia, if that water temperature gets much below 47, even the spots they just bury up. It's near impossible to catch them. It sucks. Some of the toughest days of fishing you'll ever have.
Not for me because I'm not going out when it's 8 degrees.
See that? Yeah, man, I tell people all the time, you're missing the boat, man. Wintertime fishing.
I'll fish in the 20s.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could do 8. Not in the South. 8 in the South sucks. Like,
I got some pictures of me in like a Russian hat that would everybody would love. It was cold, but that actual trip, I think the water temperature was like between 42 and 44. We had 10 guys up there, and after about a day, I'm kind of known to throw a jig deep. I went and found a bunch of places just holding just wads of them. We were averaging per boat 60 to 80 smallmouth a day.
Jesus.
And it was stupid. I mean, I thought we were going to run out of baits. I mean, that's how crazy it was. It was, man, it was awesome. But in these warmer temperatures, I caught my fish. I caught my fish on a Kayak. I said 4.8, but it's the 4-inch Kayak. I know the package. I never read it anymore. I just say, oh, that's the one. But I caught a lot of fish early on a 4-inch Kayak. And it's typical of these smallmouth, that when they're roaming like they do, they'll definitely pull up those first couple of hours of low light and munch. And if you can run into them, unfortunately, when they're scattered like that, it's a little bit of luck. I'm hitting what I think are high percentage areas, but they could have, no, we're not going to this one. We're going over here today to eat, but I threw that Kayak. I threw it on a half-ounce head and just kind of banging around on the rock piles. And I got on them quick, and man, it was just every cast for the first hour. That basically ended. Felt like the bite had died. And I picked up a jig and went slinging a jig, and it started out really good. And for some reason, I'm like the area I was in, and some of the other guys were saying it too. And after looking at the moon phase and stuff, it should have been prime, but I want to say like 11:30, 12 o'clock, which was almost a peak for that day, a peak feeding time. It just died. I mean, I quit getting bit. I was like, good Lord, what's going on? Because, to me, smallmouth and largemouth, you can go by those feeding charts almost 100%. Like a spotted bass, man, they're just idiots. They don't
agreed.
They don't live anywhere. They just roam. They don't care. They eat when they run into it. But I've definitely seen it in largemouth, and the experience that I have with smallmouth, they're definitely very tuned into those feeding times. And when I saw the day, I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to wreck them today. This is going to be a great day. So, but that's pretty much what I did. I meant to go throw a fly. But the floating fly is a low light deal. You gotta, which we did have cloud cut. I was actually thinking, man, I could just go hit a couple of the steeper banks or some banks that are shaded and possibly still get a big pull down. But I was like, you know what? I'm just going to die by the jig, and I had to pedal about 3 miles, so I stayed. Stayed where I was.
Well, that's awesome. Adam, I want to get your take on it because you were doing something from what I read completely different. So, give us how like kind of the way Tom did, how you normally approach it, and then when the weather and the temperatures are working like you've seen, and then like how it worked out for you this time.
Sure. Leading up to the event, I don't know, about a week or week and a half prior, I went out there one day, met up with Steve Owens, and was on a good topwater bite. Like, actually had some smallmouth. I'm pretty sure I had 3 on at once, which would have been a first for me. And they were literally ripping the hooks off of the topwater bait. So I was like, well, this is a good sign. And I thought it was going to cool down too much for that to not be a factor come tournament day. But as we were just discussing, it stayed warm. So I was thinking, like, man, if I go with the smallmouth, if I go for smallmouth over largemouth, I was like, I may just go all in on the topwater bite. Like I said, Thomas Davis only caught 4 fish that day. And if he would have caught a 5th one, he got them all out of basically the same group of fish. And I think we'd all agree if he would have got his 5th one, he would have won the tournament. So I thought, if nothing else, I was like, well, that's cool to know that, like, I may have could have pursued that and been on a correct path. But my plan was to practice Thursday, Friday, and then tournament Saturday. So I practiced on Thursday, and I want to go ahead and check my largemouth spots where I won it last year. And I just want to see if those fish are there. I thought it might be a little premature for them to be where they were, but I go there and I start graphing it on Thursday, and I don't really see much. So I'm like, yeah, it's a little bit early. And I go check around some other stuff and come back to that largemouth spot. And I won it there cranking last year, and I was able to crank up one. I was like, okay, maybe they're still here. I graphed a little bit more, and I thought I marked a few. So I was like, maybe they're here. It's just not quite as good as last year. And on my way out on Thursday, before I was done, I dropped a blade bait down on some that were on the bottom where I was like, man, I couldn't get a bit cranking, but let's just see if these are bass. And immediately caught one on the blade bait. So I was like, okay, may not be able to crank them up, but at least they're here. And when I caught that one, it brought up a whole school of them, and they were all the right size and a bunch of them. So I was like, all right, well, they are here. It may not be quite as good, but when I say not quite as good, I mean there's still probably a couple hundred fish off of a quarter-mile stretch. So plenty of stuff for me to mess with. So I was going to stay the night at Del Hollow Thursday night, Friday night, and then fish Saturday, practicing Thursday and Friday. I was like, you know what? I'm all in on these largemouth. Instead of wasting gas money and stay money, I was like, I'm just going to drive home Thursday night, take it easy, re-rig on Friday, and go all in on those largemouth. And that's what I did. I re-rigged a lot of stuff that was only for those largemouth. I tied up a whole bunch of different rods because I wasn't sure how I was going to catch them, but I knew they were there. So I needed to be prepared to just fish open-minded. And got there on Saturday, and exactly like Tom said, the major that day was basically the last 3 hours of the tournament. So I was prepared to have the bite window being towards the end of the day, and figured I could just do what I can up until then. It was the complete opposite. The first, like my bite died sometime in the 9 a.m. hour, but it was fast and furious, like early on. So it went against what the Solunar calendar was saying that day. But yeah, I couldn't get any cranking. Went to the blade bait, and that's what I caught 100% of my fish on. Probably caught 25 or 30 largemouth. Probably had half a dozen, we'll call it half a dozen schools of largemouth on this stretch. So I would just work on one school of fish, and when I was done with those, I'd slide over to the other one, and I just went back and forth on those half a dozen schools all day. But like I said, past 9 or 9:30, it was near impossible to get a bite. I tried a few other things, but the blade bait had to be my thing. And I thought it was fun because I put it out there that I was using a 3-foot ice fishing rod. And the reason for that was last year I was in my bonafide, and the transducer in the bonafide sits basically, if I extend my feet out in my kayak, the transducer is at the end of my feet. So if I take a 6.5-foot rod and I'm vertical fishing, video game fishing, that transducer where my lure is basically staying in the cone on those. I fish right beside Tom on Chateauque. He's seen how I did that on with a bonafide last year. And then I got my Hobie this year, and the transducer is basically right where my butt is. It's right behind me. And so trying to get a lure staying still in that cone, with not just drifting in the cone, but staying in the cone, wasn't possible. And so I was like, this is going back to, January, February of this year. So I was like, maybe I should just buy an ice fishing rod, and I was like, maybe that'll keep it in the cone better. So I ordered a $30 ice fishing rod, off the internet, and never used them before. I've never ice fished. I don't know anything about that. I don't even know what power to use or like how to fight or anything. So I just took one of my standard spinning reels and shoved it on the 3-foot ice fishing rod, and sure enough, it kept it right in that cone just fine. So come the time for this Del Hollow tournament, I was like, well, it looks like the best way to get after these fish is to just drop on them. And they didn't want a Demiki rig, so I just went to a blade bait. You could just, whether you jigged it off the bottom or jigged it above them, if they were active, you jig it above them, and if they were inactive, you had to lift it off the bottom. But that was my day. Just, it was silly. I probably looked silly out there, like a little bitty rod jigging up and down. But
I wish. Did you record the tournament? Because I know you've been playing with that.
No, I recorded the whole thing, and then when I got home to check my footage, I have 4 minutes of footage of me launching at the ramp, and that's it. So I lost the footage somehow, or else or else I probably would have already put it up there, like a goofy image of me like trying to fight a fat largemouth on a 3-foot rod out of a kayak.
That was my next question, was what does a 3-foot ice rod look like with a 19-inch, possibly 3.5 pound largemouth on it? I mean,
it's not pretty, but
he's an ice fisherman.
It's not.
It's gonna be like
it was the best scenario because these largemouth were so thick, and these specific largemouth were already full on in winter mode. The ones that were belly to the bottom had mud stuck to them, were pale white, like they had already been wintering for a while. But luckily they were so like in winter mode, therefore lethargic, that they didn't fight too much. I mean, yeah, they peeled a little bit of drag, but it's Del Hollow. It's just deep, wide open water. So, I didn't have to worry about them bearing up in anything. So I just, let them pull a little bit of a drag, and just made sure, since, using a blade bait's notorious for not having a high landing ratio, big piece of metal with treble hooks. And so I just made it a point that when I saw that they were about to come to the surface, to have that net ready. I may only get one good scoop or one good shot to land, and before, one head shake may be the demise of that fish. But that's why I feel okay with the second place finish, because I fished clean. I landed every fish that I needed to land that day. So, Tom absolutely won this one fair and square. It's not like I had that one fall on my lap or anything like that. But yeah, I wasn't going into this tournament thinking I was going to use the ice rod for it, but it made sense to come tournament day, and it actually worked quite well.
My man, what you got to do next time is trade in the Hummingbird for a Vexlar. I mean, that's if you're going to vertical jig, that's the way to do it.
I do. When I do this, or when I video game fish, it's the closest thing to using like the forward facing stuff, because I'll use the amplitude scope, the A scope. It pretty much looks like you're getting a live read off of that. That makes all the difference in the world, having that versus just like, standard 2D. I get by with that, but that A scope lets me, that's why I was picky about keeping that lure in the cone, because I could read the mood of these fish and see, like, sometimes keeping that lure dead still versus the tiniest little movement makes the difference between a bite or not. So that A scope allowed me to really feel out the mood of those fish and get a few extra bites, I think.
It's the same in ice fishing, man. Like I mean, I
Sure.
know
It
you don't
really
ice
is.
fish, but it really is. Like Jimmy saw it firsthand earlier this year. I mean, you can definitely tell the mood, like especially through the ice, because if they're coming shooting up off the bottom,
Exactly.
like they're ready to chomp,
You're about to
and
get bit.
you have times too where you can see those fish come up and they look at it and they go down when you move that bait, but or just like a slight little quiver of it, sometimes that ignites them to chomp down a bit. So
It's
I
fun,
can
isn't it?
relate,
I
dude.
think it's fun.
Dude, ice
Something I
fishing,
had like is you could chase them with it sometimes.
yeah,
Like
ice
you
fishing
get
is
in
my
that
jam.
lull where you didn't get one, and you'd have one come and he'd start to fade away, and I just drop it down on top of them. They just turn around and grab it.
Yep.
And it's crazy to me. Like he's talking about the Vexlar. For anybody that doesn't know what a Vexlar is, it's like as old school as it gets for electronics. You've just got colored lines going back and forth. When they turn red and yellow on the bottom, that's fish. You can watch your bait fall down, and then you can watch the little red dots follow it up. And it's the most freaking awesome thing in the world. And then I think about guys like Adam doing this on. You're still running Humminbird stuff, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then guys live scope, and I 100% now understand the fun of that, because if you can get on them like that,
Oh yeah,
man, I like. And then you did it on an ice rod. Like I just can't.
Yeah.
I've
Out
seen
of
what
a
a
kayak, it's
bluegill
clever
does to
though.
an ice rod.
Yeah, no, it is genius.
It's very clever, man. Like that's what I say is thinking outside of the box. Just you knew you had a mission, and you knew you had a bite, and you knew you had to utilize your electronics for that. So it was like, how do I capitalize on this situation? And I think a lot of people wouldn't have realized that. That's huge.
It's just it's a vertical bite where I've noticed it on Del Hollow more than anything. Like I'll see it on some of those herring lakes with the spots too, but you have to keep it dead still. Like it just has to be still sometime for you to get that bite, or before you can pull that fish and then mess with it. So being able to do that and not have it pendulum even just a foot or two. If I was using a standard rod, there'd still be a little bit of a pendulum with that lure. That can make all the difference in the world. I've seen that difference. I've seen guys succeed in tournaments on Del Hollow where others haven't, because of a subtlety like that. When that Demiki rig bites on, and I just felt it was worth the while. When I bought that ice rod, I was like, "What am I doing?" I was like, "Is this silly? Like, what? Am I wasting my money and time in doing this?" But
And now he's bought it a nice rod box.
I'm ordering one right now.
Yeah, right. I had a buddy today that was messaging me, and I think he ordered one tonight too because of that. So
send me that Amazon link.
yeah, right.
It's funny you talk about it, because it fatigue. And I was only about a year and a half into kayak fishing. Hadn't really done a winter in a kayak yet, but when Adam and I were on Chattooga last year, we were close to each other, and we were kind of doing a very similar fishing, of video game fishing, but for spotted bass, and they were not wanting to bite. Every once in a while you get them fired up and you catch them pretty good, but I was sitting there with a spinning rod, basically almost straight up and down, because I knew the transducer was sitting under my dang butt, and I'm like, God dog it, man, I can't, and I got Panoptics and everything else. I mean, I could have backed off of them and done things like that, but it is something about putting it right on top of their head. And, when you get ultra cold or just, it's funny you talk about the clay bellies, because I've caught spots on Kiwi out of 80 foot of water with clay caked on their bellies, and everybody's like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like,
That's crazy.
I'm telling you, man. And it's, you have to zoom in on your scope, and you're looking, on your whatever graph you're using, but then you use your zoom so you can see the bottom, and all you're seeing is like little bumps. And there's a lot of times you look at those bumps and maybe they're not fish, but I've also had it produce a lot. in those conditions of ultra cold, or fish that have just gone into that mode of, their winter haunt of, it's almost like a hibernation.
Yeah.
I realized that I need to pay you two guys.
But in
for
drop
the
shot world, we
electronics.
used to use, we would take basically the stiffest worm we could find and cut it down to 3 inches, so it wouldn't have any movement when it's just sitting there. And you think about like robo worms and things like that, they're like a spaghetti noodle,
Right.
But in that scenario where those fish just really aren't aggressive, they're not really probably looking to even eat, they're just in winter mode. We would take like the hardest worm we could find and cut them into little 3-inch sections and put them on a drop shot. And then our leader would be, 6 inches off the bottom with a 1/2 ounce weight, just sitting there holding it, dead still, trying not to move it. And they would just load up on it. It was crazy.
Speaking, just because of, Demiki rig and blade bait both, I've heard over and over again about people talking about, like you and Adam are saying, perfectly still. Do you have any like tricks or tips for that? Like, do you kind of rest it in your lap so that you're still, or do you try to like hold it in that perfect to keep it countering the motion of the boat? What, or do you
one little tip that I've learned that I've still tried to practice, and it's easier said than done, but I've seen it make a difference, is if you're dropping all day, whether it's with a drop shot or a Demiki rig or whatever, if you're doing vertical fishing and it's like up down, line twist becomes an issue, and it's kind of unavoidable, and using nicer line will help your case, but it's pretty common for me. If that's what I'm doing most of the day, I have to straighten out that line twist. But the reason I bring that to attention is I know Demiki rig fishing. Not only do you need to hold it still, like going up and down vertically in the water column, if you have line twist and your bait is spinning, that can deter a bite, and I've seen that deter a bite on Del Hollow. So just having your lure not twist one way or the other can make a big difference too. But if you think about it, there's probably not too many shad just spiraling on an axis, and one thing of water. But I just ordered some Demiki rig hooks the other day that have a swivel as part of the line tie thing to hopefully avoid that, because if you do it all day, like, you're going to have some line twist. But that's one thing that I try to practice, that I've seen my buddies have good days on the same day that I'm on the water with them. I think it's because of that line twist thing. That's an extra specific detail, but I do think it matters.
100%. What about you, Tom? You got any tricks?
I do think line twist are a big deal. I haven't. Now I've thrown the blade bait a bunch. I kind of like Adam. When they're lethargic, it works out. Smallmouth and blade baits for me don't work out, because those jokers come straight to the top and sling the dang thing. I've almost sworn them off unless I'm just trying to goof off. But the Demiki rig's not something I've really done a lot of. I kind of do my version of a Demiki rig, and people laugh at me all the time, but I drop shot with 1 ounce and 1/2 ounce weights. Even in the summertime, people are like, "Oh my gosh, why? You're in 15 foot of water." I'm like, back before live scope, if you saw a fish on the graph, I wanted to put it on his head as quick as possible. That's always been my theory. Guys are buying 1/4 ounce weights and stuff like that, letting it down to them, and I'm like, no. I mean, I'm looking at the fish. I just want to get there. And you start fishing in, 50, 60 foot of water or whatever. I don't even own a 1/4 ounce drop shot weight. Like I said, everything I have is, 1/2 ounce or heavier. I prefer to use a 1/2. I think I can get most done with it, but I will go up to 1 ounce if, kayak's different for me. I mean, good Lord, stabilizing the boat and not moving all over the dang place and trying to stay in position. It's a booger. But I guess the thing I do with drop shots, when it gets in the the cool months, and I know those fish are holding tight to the bottom like that. I mean, I literally go to, you know, a 3 to 4, maybe 5-inch leader off my weight. I mean, I get it tight to the bottom. I always feel like I can pull it up into them if I need, you know, if that fish happens to pop across my screen that's active, I can pull it up to him.
Just spin it, yeah.
But
So,
I keep it tight.
Drop shot's the only vertical technique I've ever really. I mean, I've, you know, jigged a spoon and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But in the slow aspect of what we're talking about, I've always thought, you know, heavier drop shot weights. I've done a little searching, hadn't found any, so I'd love to know like who you're using. But correct me if I'm wrong. It gets it down there fast, but it's also when being still is so critical. I mean, it's holding it still.
Yep.
And I learned a short leader trick from listening to the you know the tactical bassing guys. Like they were big on, you know, cold water, real short leader, and like I was always taught from an old man that, you know, also believed that was he ties the leader as long as whatever bait he's using, as like a rule of thumb. So like if he's using a 4-inch whatever, it's 4-inch leader. So, but yeah, what drop shot weights are you using?
You know, here lately, whatever anybody has. Some of that stuff. You know, at the dugout they had Picasso's got them. I use Picasso's. I prefer to use Picasso's if I can. Those guys are my friends, Dan and them. So I do try to use theirs, and they've always kind of been on the forefront of tungsten. But Eagle Claw, I think it's Eagle Claw or Bullet Weight. I think maybe it's Bullet Weight. It's one of the brands you actually wouldn't expect, but they make I don't think it's 100% tungsten, but a tungsten version of a drop shot weight. And so I use those. I typically have plenty of the Picasso, but they have the heavier drop shot weights. I was drop shotting a long time ago here. I did an article here in Georgia in the Georgia Outdoor News about drop shotting with Picasso guys back then, and I told them, I was like, we need heavier weights, you know, we need this. And I went out to California and got to drop shot on a lake. Golly, it was probably back in like 2000, 2001, and we hadn't heard of it out here, or I hadn't.
What lake?
Golly, I don't remember what the name of that lake was. I am not sure. It wasn't like a famous lake by any means, but we caught a bunch of fish, you know. It wasn't I guess it wasn't one of the trophy. It wasn't one of those lakes where they're catching all those hammers. It may have been, shoot, I don't know, but they weren't in there then. But you know, they showed me the technique, and I was like, man, I'm going to try this when I get home. And I went to Altoona with it, which is known as the Dead Sea. It's a tough lake. And me and my partner went up there, and basically, man, we signed up for every tournament that came along.
Were y'all some of the first ones to drop shot on Altoona?
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, I'm sure that was a big deal.
Yeah. We were until I did that stupid article, you know.
Yeah.
I think I was like 28, 29 years old, and I won that whole thing of fame, right? Yeah, bad idea.
Thing gave it away and was like,
oh God, that's stupid. Yeah, but you know, we did it there, and then it was funny back then. Zoom was running. They used to make a bait called a meathead. I think they still make them, but they made a version for Japan that was an inch shorter, and it was in natural light, which was not a common color for a meathead to begin with. And they had them in a closeout bin at Bass Pro one day, and I actually thought they were the normal meathead, but I was so impressed by the color. I was like, oh my gosh, I've never seen this color. I bought all they had. And we didn't know about robo worms really much or anything then either. We were buying like people's worms, and there was a lot of hand pour guys still doing real well, and that's who we were buying our worms from. I was buying Benny's Magic worms. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of those. But
Heard of those, yeah.
it was an impressive worm. that guy's, he made some cool stuff. Super soft. Oh my gosh. Just like, it was like putting grape jelly on a hook.
Yeah.
But the meat head that they made was typical Zoom, a lot of salt, stiff, not a lot of movement. And we went up to Kiwi, and that's where me and my partner won a really big tournament up there, drop shot in an 80 foot of water. And we came in, our live well was like just mud, and I don't know if you've ever heard of Kiwi or been on it, but it is gin clear. You can see stumps at like 20 foot of depth. It's amazing.
That's
clear.
crazy.
And everybody was like, well, we know where you boys have been, because I think we had like 18 pounds of spots, five fish, and our live well was pure mud. They all thought we had ran up to the dam, up where the water's coming in, where the water's a little more dirty.
Yeah.
I was like, all these fish came within the side of this ramp, and they're like, there's no way. And they started weighing our fish in, and they had clay caked up under their fins. And I think that's the first time I'd ever saw that. Actually, it's funny hearing. I mean, I talked to a lot of people that have never seen it, and here's Adam saying, "Oh, they had clay on them." But it's crazy. I guess when they hibernate, they just sit in that mud bank and kind of chill out or whatever.
Jeez, that's just crazy to think about. That entire part of the conversation. Like, I'm trying to wrap my head around it. So just to keep me more confused, on the blade bait side of it, Adam, what's your go-to blade bait?
I was using the Demiki, is it the Vault? I think it's called Demiki Vault. Yeah, I've been using that one for a few years now. Like when I first started going to Del Hollow, I went ahead, I knew that lake had a reputation for a blade bait. And so I grabbed the Demiki one, and it's been good. I will change the hooks out on it. But that one's really good. They all work. I haven't used one that hasn't worked there. I mean, it really is like, when I think of Del Hollow, I think of a blade bait. You think of maybe a 6XD on the Tennessee River ledges, certain bit, throwing a trap down at Rayburn or Seminole or something like that. Like a blade bait goes hand in hand with Del Hollow. So that's why it's nothing for me to put it out there. I caught it on a blade bait. That ain't no news by any means, but I do like that Demiki one. And some of those fish, like the real active ones, like you said, would shoot off the bottom. Like, you had to keep it above their heads, and then the ones that were inactive, you had to, get it all the way to the bottom and work them a little bit more that way. But it wasn't so much the color or anything like that. They just wanted that vibration of the blade bait as opposed to the dead still traditional Demiki rig. I don't know that I tried anything else, just because I felt like that if I could get them to go on the vertical style, that the blade bait was getting it done just as good as anything. So in retrospect, I may have tried to throw a little small swim bait down there on some of those same fish to try to get a call, because last year I had a few more bigger bites than I was getting this year, but I still feel pretty confident that was about as best a bet as I had on catching some. I just caught too many of them and saw how they reacted to it that I just couldn't put it down. They were into it for the most part.
Oh no, I feel you. When something's working, one side of my head is like, okay, this is doing this, but it's not catching that in larger class. You know what to do, but then I'm like, nah, I don't want to do that. I just want to keep catching fish.
Yeah.
So, and like you said, man, y'all did great. Tom, you ended up with a win with 93 3/4, and Adam, you were right behind him with 92 3/4. And we talked about your big largemouth. Tom had a literal football 20-inch smallie that at first glance almost looked like a carp. Like I had to look at it like, what? Like, it's so chunky. And that's, I haven't caught any good smallmouth on Del Hollow. It's on the list every time we come down there. It's kind of like we take a break and a hangout, and we focus on hanging out more than fishing, and we usually just limit ourselves to wherever we parked our truck, like at the cabin. So we fish right around Eastport. But I'm looking forward to getting down there and really trying, because it's hearing you, Tom, talk about how winter is the time that you're looking for your big fish. I know that, especially being friends with you, Reiser, and I just haven't given myself some time to do it. But I definitely wanted to make a winter trip down there just to try something completely outside of my norm, because I
saw and heard so many anglers from this event, like they were converted. Their eyes were open to what Del Hollow can be, even if they didn't get a limit or all it takes is like catching a couple of those big brown fish and realizing like, oh, there's endless amounts of these fish in here. And I'm telling you, you get one good lights out day on Del Hollow and it'll become your favorite place. Like it really is special. And I know that hurts the guys that have really struggled there and had multiple bad days there, but I promise you, it's a lake that's worth putting in the time. Like even if you got to strike out a little bit, you're gonna hit a big home run there one day. Like I said, it might be my favorite lake. I don't know.
So, I'm with you. It's probably one of my favorite lakes, and it was kind of interesting to hear a lot of guys talking. You know, that at the check-in, there were a lot of PB small caught. I mean, a lot. There were so many guys. You know, whether they caught it in the tournament or leading up to it.
Yep.
I know so many guys I spoke with that, man, I caught a 19 3/4. I caught a 20, or you know, and I mean that's a big smallmouth. I mean, I know what a keeper is there, but a 20-inch smallmouth, I mean, you know, they're 4.5 pounds. I mean, they're thick. They're, you know, God, they're awesome.
They get airborne.
Oh,
yeah. You know, every single one of them is a good fight too, man. It's, you know, looking at the numbers right here. I mean, there were, let's see, there were 97 people, 75 people caught at least one. If you look at it, I bet you 80%, if not 90% of the people that fished caught at least one 18-inch fish, whether that be small or large. I mean, there were great, and like you said, with Thomas Davis, he had 10th place with 4 fish. I mean, one more quality fish, and we might be having a different, you know, guest on here.
His practice and his tournament, he said he didn't catch one under 18 inches.
Jeez.
That's nuts.
Well,
it's crazy.
One last thing I wanted to hit on, because obviously electronics is key in how you're doing this. I'm sure you could. I know I'm lying. You probably couldn't just go out there and fall on top of them doing what you're doing. So, we've kind of talked about, you know, the electronics you're running. What would be just a general piece of information or help that you would give anybody listening that's, you know, having trouble understanding their electronics, or just anything, you know, a tip that you've learned, you know, vertical fishing on your electronics, just anything either one of y'all would want to add to it?
I'd say like something that what I try to teach a lot of my clients is set your depth range to a fixed amount to where it doesn't like if you run up shallow, it doesn't automatically adjust to a shallower range. Like if you're not going to be fishing any deeper than 50 foot, just go ahead and set it at 50 foot. And that way your I don't know, almost like your aspect ratio when you go from shallow to deep will remain constant and allow you to make sense of anything that you mark, be it structure or fish, a little bit better that way. And then no matter what brand you're using, mess around with your sensitivity and your contrast. Those are going to be like your two main things to and luckily most of these units, their factory settings are pretty spot on. You can kind of just turn it on and it's good to go. But sensitivity, contrast, and then setting your depth to a fixed range, those are excellent starting points if you're trying to wrap your mind around graphing, deeper fishing.
You know, I've heard from a friend we both share, from Trey Johnson. Me and Trey were talking at the shop up at Music City one day, and we're talking about you and electronics, and he said that y'all went fishing at his boat one day. He said he was like standing up on the front getting ready and looked back, and you're over there on his graph.
Yeah.
And he's like, and then when I sat back down, my stuff has never been that clear and able to read. He's like, I ain't touched my settings since. That's awesome, though. That's good information. Tom, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, you know, I think the same way with 2D. You know, one of the things I think Adam touched on earlier, if you turn on that scope, it is almost like forward facing. You know, you're seeing what's coming into your beam before it actually gets there. I used to use that trick a lot. I run Garmin now. I will say that I feel like the units that are coming off the shelf basically this year, man, they're so far advanced. The clarity, everything we're seeing on them. I mean, I go back to the days of, well, I go back to the days of a flasher, black and white flasher, not even color. So if you want to try to catch fish, use a flasher one time.
Oh, yeah.
We used to do it a lot there. But these graphs now, a lot of them, I think a lot of it's guys getting out there and having confidence, seeing some things on their graph and actually having good things happen when they see those things, right? There's so many times that people lose faith in their graph because they're like, well, or some people can't tell brush from fish, or what fish look like when they're in brush. I think those are things where if you'll just kind of pay attention to it, sometimes like a kayak's actually pretty easy because you're pedaling around or paddling around or whatever, looking at a graph. You get to start looking at things, and when you're pre-fishing, play around with the things you see and start learning what those things are. By either dropping a line on it or make a couple of I know it seems like a lot, right? But it's kind of like how I picked Dale Hollow apart. The whole lake looks so daggum good, but I look for key little pieces of structure. So I spend a lot of time pedaling. And in a bass boat, that's hard. You're sitting there going, I can go 75 miles an hour. I can idle all day. I'm gonna pin my ears back a little bit. I enjoy it, but in a kayak, I'm forced to watch side imaging. I've gone down banks that I had no idea stuff was there, even on Dale, and I've got a lot of time up there, and I'm like, good Lord, look at that. But if you'll catch some fish on a graph and kind of pay attention to it when you're fishing a little bit, I think confidence is key in learning. I think a lot of guys don't have confidence in their graph. There's so many, I always hear what's your settings, stuff like that, and I'm like, man, you pull these things out of the box. They've pretty much perfected this stuff. If you think your settings are messed up, you maybe you just need to pay attention a little more to your graph and watch things and get some confidence in what it's showing you. A kayak's the perfect world. Our transducers aren't, buried up in a hole of a fiberglass boat or anything like that. They're sitting there exposed in the water. You're getting the best possible scenario of a graph that you could get. I use Panoptics. I'm trying to learn it. It's I see beautiful images online, and I've experienced those beautiful images, so I do know they exist. But it's a tough technology. I've been reading a lot about it, but that's the other thing you can do is kind of read, about 2D sonar. I still use it every time I fish. It's the one thing that is a constant on my graph. I never take it off. It's what I call the D-liar, I think if guys spent the time to learn it a little better and, just like I said, when you're out there fun fishing, if you see something, you're in a kayak, just slow down a little bit, throw on it, and drag around on it and see what it is. I know so many guys that don't know what a brush pile looks like. Every time they see a brush pile, they're like, oh my God, look at that group of fish. That's brush.
See, that's something. I had a Humminbird was the first unit I ran, and it was a few years ago, and I had tons of trouble. I could never get it to show up clear. No, it wasn't a mega unit. I actually think it was before mega units.
All right.
But I could never get that crisp, clean picture that I could literally go to somebody else's boat with the same unit and see. And I went to Raymarine for, like you said, I went to an Element 9, and right out of the box, it was perfect. I haven't changed anything, but I changed up the colors a little bit. But,
right. It's preference, right?
And Del Hollow holds a special place in my heart. That's the first place I've got to use it and catch fish in deep water, seeing it on a graph. First time I've had side imaging and really put it all together. I was coming down one of the creeks, and it was like 25, 30 foot deep, and I ran over a brush pile that was very obvious that it had fish on it. Then you can glance at the side and know exactly how far away it was, and I threw right on top of it and caught a fish. And that was that aha moment, like finally. Yeah. and then I would like to take it further. Like I love my Raymarine unit. It's great, but I feel like, just for me, I think Humminbird's picture is just like the mega units, and the 360 imaging looks just so incredible that now that I've kind of know it a little better, I'd like to, buy one and have Adam set it up, basically. But
yeah, I've used a lot of different graphs. I've run Humminbird, I've run Lowrance, and now I'm Garmin. It's funny. One of the biggest things I notice in guys with graphs, because I've been on a lot of boats. I get in different people's boats and stuff fishing, and you see a different graph. And the Humminbird guys all want to see that amber screen, on side imaging. Lowrance originally would have like a different color, and everybody's like, "Oh, that's not clear," and I'm like, "It's just as clear as yours. You just want to see that." And I would hit amber, and they'd all go, "Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's it." I'm like, perception's 9/10 of the law,
I think that's the whole reason I don't use amber is because that's what everybody likes. I'm one of those people. Like I turn mine to like green, blue. I just swap it up completely.
The guys in Panoptics world, they're all using like this green and blue, and I look at them like, God, that looks like crap, and I'm like, I can't use it. But it's a lot of that stuff's, like side imaging to me and the forward-facing imaging definitely seems to be find a color palette that you like and have confidence in, and is appeasing to what you're wanting to see. When I first,
everybody's eyes see color different too, so that's
true.
You got to play with it, in my opinion, because I mean, like to me, the amber color doesn't. It's not. I don't know what the right word would be, like attractive to my eyes. I guess I find myself a lot of the time like really like squinting and trying, and then I changed it to a very bright green, and everything just pops to me, so I can just glance and I don't have to really focus on it.
That's a popular color palette in like any of the videos you see with like, to me, like right now I've been watching a lot of Garmin and some 360 imaging, and it seems like a lot of people, that green seems to do it for a lot of people on the whether the brightness and the pop and the contrast of what they're seeing is so. But yeah, it's there's these graphs now, I mean, good Lord, I mean, we used papers at one point. I mean,
I remember the old paper maps, man. Yeah. The books, per state or half the state.
No, the worst thing is when you run out of paper.
Yeah.
It's like a printer, all right?
Yep.
You got an extra roll? Yeah, and you're sitting there in a tournament trying to put a roll of paper in the graph. Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, that's real stuff.
I love to hear about where it came from, but I'm glad we're where we are. And then I'm happy to talk to you guys that have been through it, and that's why y'all are as good as y'all are. I don't know what Brian's excuse is, but Tom's been there and done it all, and still on top of his game.
I think Ryan's. I think Adam's one of those guys that tinkers a lot. So he's got a lot of stuff dialed in.
Him and Russ are two people that love talking to him, but I prepare myself if I ask any kind of question. Like when we were all at Lake Fork together, I slipped up and asked Russ one question about a jerkbait, and in 15 minutes my face was like melted from the information that I just took in. Just like I didn't know what I was getting into. Apparently, never mind. I don't want to throw a jerkbait. Like, and Adam's the same way, man. He'll, just talking with you, Adam. You've called me when I've been on the water. We've talking about, places we're gonna fish, and he can talk you through little things that you might just have missed, just like little bitty teeny pieces of information. And that's
you guys need to do a podcast. We need to do one, Adam, on buzzbaits.
Yeah, I'd be all about that. I don't want to do it right now because it'll make me miss. I can't pick up a buzzbait for months and months, so it may hurt me to do it right now.
I don't know. I'm not so sure you couldn't have thrown one this past weekend.
Oh, I don't care. Even though we just had like cold weather come through, I'm still pretty convinced you could at least get a smallmouth topwater bite on Valhalla right now. Like, as crazy as that sounds, I think they'd still go for it.
Oh, I know what I'm doing this weekend. I'm making a trip. I'm coming to Nashville Saturday anyway, so I might as well just bring my boat.
All right.
Just keep driving. So
Adam's Guide Service is open for business if you want to book an appointment.
There you go. Thank you, Brian.
Little shameless plug there. Well, we've kept y'all for a little over an hour, man. I appreciate it so much, y'all coming to tell us about this. And we really got into it on this, Like I said, going into it, winter fishing gets overlooked by so many people, especially if they're new coming into it, didn't grow up bass fishing or fishing at all. So I appreciate y'all having so much insight on everything, and especially on Del Hollow. Y'all both sound like you have killer history there. But we like to let everybody thank whoever makes fishing easy for them, or any sponsors you have before we go. So Adam, if you want to go ahead and take it away, who makes it good for you?
Sure. Congrats again to Tom. Tom, I've got the text on my phone to prove this, but people were reaching out to him before the tournament, being like, "Hey, you gonna win it?" Or, "What's it like out there?" And I'm like, I gotta beat Tom Kazmierski first. Like, when I saw that you put up on the Dugout Monthly those fish from practice, I was like, well, I for sure, like, Tom's fish are back there again. So I was like, I still got to beat this guy. And I was like, man, I'll just go all on a largemouth. But it's been fun, Tom, going up against you this year, like in these handful of events, man. It's making me want to fish hard and fish better too. And I got a lot of respect for you and your history of bass fishing. So that's been fun. Thanks to Dugout. Cool to do this podcast with my Dugout teammate Tom here. Dugout Dakota's been huge for me this year. Those two really been just big players for me. I'll do a shameless plug and just say this is my favorite time of year to do those electronics guide trips, whether it's around the Nashville area or running out to Del Hollow. So guys that want to get those graphs dialed in or just catch fish in general, like, holler at me. There is no better time to gain a lot of ground on the electronics thing than during the winter like this, when you don't have all the pleasure boaters. And if you can just dress warm, you can get out there and learn a lot in a hurry on that.
Paddle and Fin supports that message.
I appreciate it, man. I look forward to seeing you guys down there. It sounds like in the spring too. So I'll thank you guys as well.
Heck yeah. Well, what about you, Tom? Who makes it good for you?
I'm like said, it's good to be here with a Dugout teammate, but Dugout Bait and Tackle, those guys take care of me. They're lifelong friends I've had. I grew up with most of those guys. Seagar is my favorite line, about the only line I throw now, have for years. And then I don't have any real sponsors other than that. I like Dakota lithium batteries. They get me where I'm going. I got a Newport power vessel on my kayak now that I love. Nice. Big fan of that little motor. Man, that thing's a little workhorse. And
I've been asking everybody that's running it, what's your battery setup for that?
So, and I'm going to change. But my battery setup right now is currently two 12-volt, 54 amp hour Dakota lithiums. I will say this. I was running in practice probably 8 to 9 miles wide open, trying to kill it. And I was still coming in with half battery life.
Wow.
Yeah. And the only thing I don't like about my setup right now is I'm also running my graphs off one of those batteries. Mm-hmm. And just heads up to people out there, this is a known thing in bass boat world, and I am smarter than this. But 24-volt batteries from Dakota right now are a little hard to come by. But you definitely need separate batteries because you get interference and you don't get to see, when you're zooming around, all the graphing that I could be doing. It's a lot hard. I have to slow way down to do it. And technically, when you're side imaging, like 2 to 3 miles an hour is a really good speed.
So you got 8 to 9 miles, and you're running Panoptics.
100%. I know, crazy.
And everything. Wow, yeah, that's awesome.
And people that don't know Garmin or Panoptics, it is a battery hog. It'll.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man, that thing's sucking some juice, man. But I plan on changing that. Jamie and I were actually talking about it yesterday. I said, yeah, I gotta fix this. This is not the way I want it run. I want to be able to have my graphs and stuff separate. But I'll tell you, before we go here, man, big thanks to Steve and Daniel, Steve Owens.
Yes.
And good Lord, and I know Adam feels the same way. These guys they have a lot of heart. They want big things for the anglers. These guys are like selfless people out there just trying to do great things for the sport of kayak fishing. And coming from the boater world, I've seen people do this before. Tournament directors have that kind of heart and make big things out of trails. So, what those guys did and the sponsors, they've been able to go and gather up and, it makes it to where everybody kind of gets to walk away with something or has a good chance of walking away with something. A lot of guys walked away with SLX rods from the dugout. I think Dakota Lithium gave away a couple of batteries. NetBait gave away a pile of like really cool baits, some of the NHT series, the NTH series, like the crush worms and stuff, which if you want to play around with the drop shot, that worm's smoking hot. Trying to think of who all, Carl Black's doing like a huge pot of money for the big fish. Newport's giving away a motor, I think at the end of the year or something in AOI. Just check out all the sponsors and what they're doing. Obviously to me, it's a big deal. Seagar gave away, golly, I don't know, there was probably 10 or 15 spools of line given away, and
Steve has a way. He has his way with sponsors, and
he does, man. I've asked the guy. I said, "You got a job, or is this it?" How much?
Yeah,
and he's not getting paid anything, right? Tournament directors that go out there and do that kind of stuff, man, And I think the cool thing is like when something I've seen in kayak fishing that I really like. Unfortunately, I didn't double dip. I wish I would have, but these kind of like a local club or whatever it is, kind of scheduling an event on the same day to where there's two events kind of running simultaneously to where the anglers can double dip. And I think it tightens up the community and bringing in more anglers together, guys that I've never met, got to meet and hang out with, make some new friends and stuff like that. At the end of the day, man, I still got a day job. I'm not making a living at this. So I take a lot of value in meeting cool people like Adam. Now I'm getting to meet you guys. Adam and I hung out down at Seminole at Hobie. To me, that's what it's all about, and kind of makes it fun, even on the tough days.
For sure. Yeah. Well, again, guys, we appreciate you coming on. I think we've killed it on this episode. I'm sure we could get into even more because I still have so many questions on Del Hollow, but that might be, this is our last show before the break, so we're going to get to recording some stuff. So, we may be hitting you guys up for an additional show for something, along the lines of, vertical fishing or graphing or whatever. But we do appreciate you, and just like always, big shout out to everybody that makes kayak fishing so great, like y'all said, and congrats again for a killer event, and I'm sure we'll see y'all soon. I guarantee to see these two names at the top of a list somewhere.
Absolutely.
But we appreciate it, guys, and we'll catch up with you, soon, hopefully.
Thanks a bunch, y'all.
Hey, thank you guys.
All right. Love having those guys on, man. That was way more informational than I was ready for, but very, very excited about it. Well, we kind of hit on it just for a second. Brian, you ready to talk about us going back to Del Hollow yet?
Yeah, we'll be there beginning of April. We're going to have a tournament again, 2 days, Saturday, Sunday. I believe that's April 2nd and 3rd, correct?
Yeah, first weekend of April, I'm pretty sure. And then we're doing the little joint event with the Central Tennessee Kayak Anglers, CTKA. He's kind of been fishing around with the schedule to make it not overlap any of the other, because Tennessee's got like 12 clubs.
Right.
So
right.
He did his best to help pick a date where none of that overlapping is going to happen, so that hopefully we can start, pumping the info out on this and get all these Tennessee clubs to show up and just have a complete slugfest at Del Hollow in April. And I guarantee you we'll see these two guys we just had on here at that. So
yeah, and it'll be an open event. It'll be an open event too. So if you're not even from Tennessee and you want to come down, it's I know some of the Georgia boys that were down last year want to come back up. And a few of the Illinois guys that had turned out, awesome days. Same with the Ohio guys. So I know I've been getting messages nonstop about, hey, are we going back to Dale Hollow, Eastport Marina? We're working with them again. So we'll have the beautiful venue that we had last year. I know we're already working on some bonus items, which we gave a ton of stuff away last year down there as well. I know Adam won. He took a kayak and he ended up doing the old switcheroo with the other guy that took second because he wanted the F10. The other guy wanted the F12.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, we gave away 3 kayaks last year. So I'm sure there's going to be a kayak or 2 up for grabs and
Man,
things like
it'll be
that.
worth it. That's all you got to say. We'll have some, great support from our sponsors. Esport always does a great job taking care of everybody. You know, the barn, if you didn't get to hang out with us last year, you can go back and look at the pictures. The little venue up there is just freaking awesome. Real way too classy for us, but very, very nice.
Yeah, we got the date set. We're starting to hammer out all the fine details. I know last year, like, we had live music, we had dinner Saturday night, which the folks down there at the restaurant at the marina did a phenomenal job. I know I thought I was going to have a heart attack going back to the house because I ate so much. Like, I mean, just a great time, beautiful venue, awesome food, awesome people. All the anglers that come out, had an awesome time. And like I said, everybody's asking me, is this happening again? And obviously the answer is yes. We said we were going to do it again. So, for those listening, I'd say just be on the lookout for the details. They're getting hammered out, but the actual dates of second and third, are definitely set in stone. Now it's just a matter of, format, things like that, and entry fees, blah, 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 blah. All the fine
$500 entry fees. No, totally kidding. I won't even fish it at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at that point, you might as well write a check to Adam Reiser and just hand it over.
Yeah. You pump it up, him and Tom are going to show up. So
yeah, right.
They'll just split the money.
Yeah, exactly. So
well,
no, it'll be fun, man. Looking forward to it. I'm sure by the time we come back from break, we'll have all the info hammered out, and we could talk about it on the show here for sure.
Yeah, we'll definitely, once we get the rest of the details hammered out, you'll start seeing a graphic made up. We'll share the heck out of it.
Yep.
I'm gonna challenge my buddy that runs CTK to just make the state, at least make his state show up for it. So you'll be seeing that a lot once we get it out. But yeah, that's it, man. You got anything else, B?
No, man. Just I know during the break we're still going to have a few OG live shows on Thursdays. So be on the lookout for that. I know we're going to do like a special Christmas episode the week of Christmas that Thursday. So be on the lookout for that. And yeah, I think that's basically it.
Well, heck yeah. Well, we'll see everybody. Oh Lord, when is our coming back?
The first week of January. So your next show will be January 5th going live.
We'll see you January 5th, everybody. Take us out, Brian.
Peace out, Girl Scouts.
And that's the new closer for the real day.
Yeah, there you go.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to another killer episode on Paddle and Fin. Don't forget to go check out our website at paddle_and_fin.com. Don't forget to check out the YouTube channel at Paddle and Fin. If you got a question, comment, want to hear from a future guest on a future episode, feel free to email us at paddle_and_fin@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Paddle and Fin on Facebook and Instagram. Shout out to our show supporters, Angler. The Angler button and app just makes for a better time on the water and creates a virtual logbook for every fishing outing out on the water. Shout out to Rocktown Adventures, located in Northern Illinois, for all your kayaking, camping, and hiking needs. Shout out to Jig Masters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to jig